I grew up pretty overweight, always being made fun of, and you want to be accepted so badly, and you distance yourself all the time in order to fit in, and eventually you just feel like, okay, what I am is obviously not enough, so you just have to mold yourself and blend into the environment that you're in, and that hurts, of course. It's always hard.
Welcome to the Shame Game. Shame thrives in secrecy but loses all its power when we bring it to light. This show is all about embracing vulnerability and finding connection through our shared experiences of shame. In each episode, we'll talk with a new guest where we'll dive into their stories and experiences and learn how to break free from shame and love ourselves just that little bit more. So sit back, relax, and let's get ready to play the Shame Game. Hello everybody, this is Eleni and I'm so excited today. We have our first guest from Sweden and our guest's name is Jonathan Saturnus. He's from Sweden. He's a practicing teacher of authenticity, devotion, and spiritual wisdom. And he's on a soul journey of self-discovery, aren't we all?
Oh.
Oh, yeah. He's embodying spirit with intention and desire for service to the whole. And welcome, Jonathan.
Oh, thank you, Eleni. It's beautiful to be here, truly. So, yeah, I'm excited for this too. It's gonna be very
Yeah.
cool. It's my first podcast ever, so be kind to
Oh,
me, okay?
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, wow. I'm so excited about that. So this all started because I saw a post that you did in a forum and the post was about shame. And I thought, oh, this is my podcast, The Shame Game. And in The Shame Game, it's all about owning the shame, um, talking about the shame, releasing the shame, then other people can also relate to their shame. And then we realize that once we've released it, that, there's nothing to be ashamed about. So with your particular story, you talked about something that I think most of us can relate to in some shape or form, metaphorically and literally. And that is the shame of body image. So can you tell me, if we just go back in time, that how did you first learn that you had to look a certain way?
Oh, I grew up pretty overweight, so I got my fair dose of signals from reality pretty early on that, hello, you should probably be a little bit more pretty, or just you should look better in general, because, if you want to fit in, that's just how it is. And I was always a very kind kid. I was always very loving towards everyone. And so when that wasn't enough, I felt shamed into molding myself and becoming something else. And you try to fix your hair in a certain way, and you try to just blend in, and you very quickly lose your sense of self, and you don't really know who you are anymore. But at least you have friends, right? And so
Yeah,
at least you're
yeah.
accepted by the group, but not by yourself. So you just push yourself away all the time, and there you are. And now you're on the brink of self-destruction. Yep.
So tell me, when you said that you were not particularly slim, that you were carrying extra weight, how did you know that? Like, unless somebody tells you that, that you're not matching up in some way, how did you internally know that that's not okay?
That it's not okay to be overweight, or that it's not okay.
According to your perception, yeah. According to your perception at the time that it wasn't okay.
Yeah, it was just like subtle bullying all the time, just always being made fun of. And when we went to swim or something in the summer, and people were joking and making fun of you, you just eventually understood that, okay, let's just keep a t-shirt on, and let's not let's
Okay.
not
Let's get the t-shirt on.
yeah, let's not show ourselves, because it's obviously not appreciated, and people are just making fun of you. They're not laughing, and they're not having a good time. They're just really shaming you. And it wasn't a there's a difference between having fun and someone just obviously wanting to be mean to you. And as a kid, you see the difference because these kids don't really understand. They're seeing different things, and they're just projecting their own shame, right? So if they got taught at home that, you have to be lean, you have to look like, you can't eat however much you want, and this and that, and you're telling these kids at an early age that if you're fat, you're not good. Well, it's not a good thing. Then the kids
Yeah.
won't know the difference, right? So when they see you, they're going to make fun of the same shame that they feel
Yeah.
inside, and they overlap
Yeah.
their
And how
pride.
did you
Yeah.
feel? How did you feel, Jonathan, when that happened back then?
Oh, it was hard, of course. So, like it is for every kid that's going through anything that is remotely shameful. It's just you want to be accepted so badly, and you distance yourself from yourself all the time in order to fit in, and eventually you just feel like, okay, what I am is obviously not enough, so you just have to mold yourself and put on greater and greater images to really be able to blend into the environment that you're in. And that hurts, of
Mm,
course, when everything that you've ever tried to do was from a pure intention. Everything always was about love, right? So it's always
yeah.
hard for kids, I think.
Yeah. Just tell me about your culture in terms of Sweden. In Sweden, I get this image that, we've got this image across the world that, in Sweden there's they're beautiful people. So is there a cultural expectation that you look a certain way? Do you think that's different a little bit even more so than other countries?
Yes, definitely. I think Sweden is. We even have like something called Jante law, which is it's all about everything. Everything is everything is decent. No one is better, no one is worse, but everyone feels better or worse on the inside, but no one is allowed to tell it. So everyone is walking around with a prideful sense of humility, which is not humility at all. It's just arrogance, essentially. And everyone is just pretending to be this mediocre guy, but feeling very superior or inferior on the inside, and no one is willing to show anything. No one is willing to display any emotion. So it's just about really loading up on that status of yours and just showing everyone how badass you are and how unaffected you are by reality, and truly just playing it cool all the time, never showing any sign of affection or being in any way, shape, or form triggered by life. That's not a good thing.
Uh-huh. So what you're saying is that it's not in your culture to appear vulnerable.
Not at
It's
all.
in your culture to be always poised and always a certain way. But in reality, what's going on the inside is there's a lot of turbulence because you're not actually able to show who you really are.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah.
Wow. And so tell me about this journey for you. So, you went through this phase where you did work on your body. So, what did you do and when did you do that?
Yeah, I did this a lot during my teenage years, and I crash dieted in just before the summer. I never got any lean, or I'd never looked physically appealing, I think, but I looked I got slimmer and I lost weight and I was more comfortable around people in the summer. But at maybe 22, I think, the year after I had or the same year as I got my daughter, pretty, I was pretty heavily overweight, and I was about 125 kilos, which would be about 280 pounds or something, I think.
Hmm.
And I lost like, I think, 45 kilos in the span of 9 months. So I then lost a lot of weight and I got six pack, and I had the reverse dad bod, you might say, even after I had a kid. So I looked very good. I a lot of validation from everyone. Everyone was, oh, how good you look, and everyone told you how well have you done how well you've done everything, and Now all of a sudden you got the validation that you always wanted, and you see that it didn't mean anything, didn't give you
Yeah,
anything
right.
at all. And
Yeah.
when you got that validation, it seemed just like you got a bit disgusted by everything, by yourself, by people suddenly seeing you. And but they saw you for all of the reasons that you didn't want to be seen. You didn't want to be seen for the reasons that they saw you. And then you just further reinforced your belief that you had to be in a certain way. And eventually I got tired of it, and I found my group of people that I was able to just be myself around. And that was my girlfriend and my friend at the time, who, and we got into conspiracies and stuff. And then just it went downhill. I didn't care about my body image. I was like, yeah, sure. I never got heavily overweight again, but I didn't care about validation anymore. I didn't care about looking good for others. I just wanted to be myself, and I didn't want to suffocate anymore just because people wanted me to be in a certain structured framework. In reality, I didn't want it. I didn't want this dry masculine taste of reality that we've all been pushed into.
Yeah. It's a really interesting journey, Jonathan, and I think that the journey that you're on and where you're at, people are still on the journey of trying to appear to look a certain way. So if we can just take your journey, you were overweight to begin with. You felt shame because you didn't look a certain way, and you went up and down and had some unhealthy eating habits, and then you lost 45 kilos and then looked exactly the way society expected you to look. And then you had the validation from everybody. But then you realize, like with anything that the ego wants, that the moment you get it, it's not it. And it's such a incredible like revelation. Like, I've got it. Okay, I've worked really hard, to lose the 45 kilos. You've worked really hard to look a certain way. I know you mentioned a six pack before, and I went through a period of time probably about 14 years ago. I'm 54, but when I was about 40, where I was really like, that was my aim, to have a six pack. And it just wasn't natural for a woman to have a six pack. And I was working hard. I was training 3 times a day for this elusive six pack. And I got as far as a 4 pack. and and it was just like, what am I striving for? What am I striving for? But we keep going on that hamster wheel, where it's like this constant need and this constant desire to look a certain way. So you've mentioned that you now no longer seek external validation. Would you absolutely say that is the case, or is there a part of you that still does, Jonathan?
Yeah, well, I'd say, well, if if there is anything in me that wants validation, I know that it's a part of me that still is trying to distance itself from God. So yeah, sure, there are still parts of me that are subconscious, that are still appearing or coming through the cracks sometimes. But as soon as they are there, I am able to see them, and I'm able to allow them through with humility. And I can see that, you know what, we don't have to distance ourselves with pride anymore. We can just be who we are, and we can let all of these games go because there's no reason for them.
Yeah, yeah, the game of the ego. Personally, what I found was that because I was a big gym goer, and then I decided when I had my spiritual awakening, like, that's it. Like, I'm not going to be a slave to the gym anymore. And I stopped going for a good 18 months.
Mm,
But then I just didn't like the way I was feeling, and I didn't like the way that my body was looking. And see, the ego's back and saying, you see, now look at yourself. Are you happy now?
mm,
And so I've gone back. But what I am doing now is making sure I'm not back every day.
mm,
So, like, if I feel like just going for a walk, I just go for a walk. If I feel like sleeping in, I sleep in. But it really is, I don't know, I feel like it's a difficult balancing act when you can see the effects on your body, and like you said, to say, well, I'm not my body. So this is taking me away from who I really am and my inner essence and connection to God or source or the universe or whatever you want to call it.
mm,
So it is difficult, though, that kind of pulling back, going back, pulling back. It almost seems like this tug of war between the ego and ourselves in terms of what the ego wants, because the ego wants you to keep going to the gym. The ego wants you to look
Mm.
good because the ego wants that feeling of what it feels like when it likes what it sees.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think the only medicine to that is reclaiming your power through humility. I think we have to see that there is no thing that we can do in reality that is not coming from us as a source. So we need to stop seeing the gym as something that we have to do, and instead we see that, you know what? Let's bless ourselves with an experience of gymming. Truly it's truly just about reframing our way of doing things. It's We shouldn't do things by forcing ourselves to be in a certain way, or we shouldn't go out and be a victim to reality in any way, shape, or form, because we're not. So when we go to the gym because we have to, and not because we truly feel like it's something that we want, then we are giving away all our power to the gym. And the same goes with taking an ice bath or doing anything that is healthy. If we can't see that health is coming from us and not from habit or the thing at hand, then we're missing the point again. Then we're missing out that we are the source of power that we're looking for. So the health has to
Yeah.
come from us first. We can't do it the other way around because it's not healthy then, right? If you're going to the gym and you're crazy about it, you're obsessing about it, then it's not a very healthy relationship. And all of a sudden you're in a destructive relationship with the gym and you're ruining your body and you're not actually taking care of yourself. So we all know how that works. So we need to see for ourselves with open eyes, without judgment, that if you're still going to partake in this game of shame, or the shame game, like you're calling it, then you have to always cope in order to justify your existence with a bunch of pride. And all of that pride will just hide your shame from you evermore until you can't see it anymore. And then you're just your pride. Then you're just your falsely projected image. And then you've really outdone yourself. You're really far away from yourself, and you can't. It's gonna be way harder to find back. So it's very important that we see that the only true antidote to shame is humility. It's the only thing.
Yeah.
And to see that
Yeah.
judgment about ourselves or anyone else is completely unwarranted, because reality is perfect. We cannot judge reality. If we are if we are even thinking about it to judge reality and saying that it's wrong in any way, we are missing out on what reality is, because it isn't wrong for sure. We are never in a wrong reality. We're exactly seeing what we're supposed to. So if we can be humble enough to see that no one knows what's right and wrong, but everyone is trying their best always, we can let go of judgment. And when we do that, then we can free ourselves from shame, and we can free others from the same shame that we are projecting onto ourselves.
I love this. I love this. And Jonathan, you've said so many big concepts there that I think we can't just let them go.
Yep.
So you've talked about something which I feel is really important, which is you've talked about shame, and people think that the opposite to shame is pride,
Mm.
but it's not. It's very interesting because both of those extremes are actually of the ego. So when you feel shame, it means you feel like you are less than someone else. And it's the ego that thinks it's less than and not good
Yeah.
enough. And then on the other extreme, when you feel proud, you think that you're better than somebody
Mm.
else. And again, it's the ego that has this social hierarchy that you are less than or you are better
Yeah.
than. Our soul doesn't think that we are less than or better than. So it's interesting that you say that pride is not. And and you hear it everywhere, don't you? When I had my spiritual awakening in July 2021, I hear it everywhere. I'm so proud of this. I'm so proud. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of this. And I just couldn't stand that word anymore. Like, I don't want to say I'm proud of anything, because then that pride is of the ego. Like, it's a sense that you are better than.
Yeah.
But what you said, which was key, which I absolutely love, is that the opposite to shame is humility. So talk to me about humility.
Mm. Yeah, it's an art, really, right? It's an art of allowing. It's an art of allowing everything to be what it is, and it's about ceasing this mindless attempt to always make reality wrong and to make it right
Mm.
where you see fit. It's um, it's about allowing the cessation of projection to happen. That's really what humility is, to see that if I can just allow what is right now, reality is perfect. But if I have to force myself onto it and I have to say that this is right and this is wrong, well, then all of a sudden I've made this distortion, haven't I? And we're back to the law of one, and we keep making distortions where it's not, and we lose ourselves. We twist reality where we can't twist it. It's just a twisting of ourselves. You're not bending the spoon, you're bending yourself. Just like in the Matrix, it's essentially what humility is. It's allowing reality to reveal itself to you. And that's why it's, in my opinion, one of the most important virtues of the holy virtues in the Bible. It's because it allows for patience. It allows for true confidence, really. It's people say that confidence is something that you need in order to get rid of shame. But I say that confidence can't come without humility. If you can't be confident in the universe or in what we are, if you can't see that our essence is truly always helping itself because it is itself, well, then you're never going to be confident because you're always at war with reality and you're just waiting for reality to beat you. So confidence has to come
Yeah.
from our source. And so that's, to me, humility allows us to bask in all of the virtues. It allows us to truly be with reality. And reality is truly divinely perfect. So I say humility is the way. It's the way to God. It's the way to whatever that you see is the highest. If you can't be humble, you're going to be full of shame and pride. And good luck with that because it's going to hurt.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I love how you said that realities, the moment that appears in front of you is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And what we try and do is say, no, it's not perfect because that's not what I planned. So it's not perfect, but it is perfect this moment. And as much as it hurts, or as much as there is pain there, it is perfect because you can never know what's really intended and what the bigger picture is, and so it is perfect. And humility, I love your definition of humility because it's very different to anything else that I've heard, which is just accept the moment exactly as it is without casting a judgment on it that it's right or that it's wrong. It just is.
Mm.
Just accept that moment as just is. And so is do you find yourself, Jonathan, that this is such an underrated, um I don't know how to call humility, like an underrated skill, really, that we need to fall back on is humility. And so what do you do so that you can know for sure that you are in that space of humility? What do you do to remind yourself?
Mm. Yeah, to me, it's truly, I think that the best tool for me to allow humility has been meditation, right? It's to withdraw your essence from any form and to come back to yourself as the center and to see that the center is perfect. And if the center is perfect, and that's the source of all, well, shouldn't everything else be perfect too? And that all the forms and all of the things that are spinning around on the wheel is truly just a dance of consciousness. And so why are we here pretending that it's wrong? And so when I withdraw my essence back to myself and I sit with myself, there is no wrongs. So in here, all is perfect. And when I open my eyes and I'm still centered in that, everything else becomes perfect too. Or it is evident, is self evident as perfect. And you don't have to make anything. You simply are. And you're practicing being instead of a bunch of doing.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I think
beautiful.
I think meditation for anyone listening is the number one practice that we can implement if we want humility to bless our lives and to allow humility to free ourselves and others from our unforgiving grasp of pride.
Yeah. And to find our center. You know, I totally agree in terms of getting back to that center of who we are. Meditation is definitely an important key to that. And if you think that you can't meditate, I used to be that person too.
Mm,
then you're it's exactly why you need to
yeah.
meditate, so that we can allow those thoughts to leave us and we can go back to our center. You know, Jonathan, you said in something that I saw you write about, you said that there was a time in your life when you couldn't actually see people in their eyes. Can you tell me why that was the case?
Yeah, it was just essentially the fear of shame, right? It was my pride of looking imperfect. So when I looked people in the eyes, when I feel tired or I felt like I had bad breath or something, even when I didn't have it, even when it was just, I asked my friends, do I have bad breath? No. I couldn't look people in the eyes because I just felt disgusting, and I couldn't just peer into their souls and talk to them because I felt so ashamed of who I was. And it was really just the fear of being seen as that shameful essence. It was the fear of them seeing my shame. So it was essentially just my pride, right? If they were to see that I had bad breath, what would it do to me? Nothing. They would
Mm,
probably call it out and say, "Hey, no, hey, your breath stinks." Okay, and then I would feel shameful, and then it would be over, and I would allow that shame to express, and there we are. We're still perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. But instead, I made this entire spectacle about it, and it became the topic of my life, right? I couldn't have a dialogue and I couldn't do anything with anyone intimately because I couldn't look them in the eyes. I couldn't be with them. I couldn't, because I was with my breath. You see? Like,
mm.
I was just,
It was almost like a wall that you created between you and the others, was this
yeah,
story that you had bad breath when you really didn't have bad
yeah,
breath. But it was like, but what about if I did?
yes,
What about if I did? Then what? Then
yeah.
people, what are they going to think
Because
of
when
me?
someone else has bad breath and I feel it, I judge the shit out of them, right? So I just judge myself on the same premises. So I didn't want to risk that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is that's what we do? Is that we're afraid of others judging us the way we judge
Yep,
others?
yep. Yes, all judgment is judgment of self. So when we judge others, we are going to judge ourselves on the exact same premises. Always, we're never going to free ourselves from judgment if we can't free others from it. So that's the my whole breath story there. It's something that I'm still working on from time to time when it comes up, and I feel like my breath is. I feel like it's dry. I have dry mouth, and I'm trying to sit with that. I'm trying to center myself whenever I'm like having an intimate discussion with someone, and they really move up close, and I'm like, holy shit! Now you're coming. Oh, whoa, dude. Oh, back off there, and I'm
Give
like,
me distance.
and then
Yeah.
I have to center myself, and I have to see that if they feel like I have bad breath, it will have to be their job to distance themselves. If they want to talk to me like this, I can't be the one who constantly sit there and deny our service and our presence with others just because I might have bad breath. You know what? Screw it. It's okay.
Yeah. And that's just like a metaphor for anything. For you, it was bad breath, but for somebody else, it's carrying extra kilos. For somebody else, it's having a big nose. For somebody else, it's not having the job that they need to have, or whatever it is. But it's a wall that people put up. And like you said, we judge others, and therefore, um, we judge ourselves. And by judging ourselves, we're actually judging others as well. And so, if I could ask you one last question, Jonathan, which is, what would you say to that young boy now who was overweight and who felt embarrassed and ashamed? And if he's there right there with you right now, what would you say to him?
Yeah. I think the truth of this question would be that that young boy still exists within each and every one of us, and if he's overweight or not, I'm gonna say it just like it is, because it has nothing to do with his form. That he is so lovable, and he is huggable, and he's worthy of physical contact, and he doesn't have to shelter himself, because what we hate about ourselves is not necessarily something that everyone else hates.
So, can you tell him as if you're speaking to him,
Mm,
Jonathan?
yeah. Allow yourself to breathe. Don't hold all of that in. Just be in the moment with what is, and don't worry too much about what people say about you or what you say about yourself, and just be who you are and find your group of people that will love you for who you are, not for what you look like. And when the time comes for you to be intimate with someone and to be physical, just trust that you are exactly who you're supposed to be. And your form will always be changing, so don't worry about if you look a bit worse today than you did yesterday, because it's always going to change. And if you can just hold space for yourself and see that you are lovable, other people will see it too. And if you can just stop judging yourself and others on about different appearances or different faults that you perceive, you will free yourself from the burden of pretending to be wrong, because you aren't wrong. Your circumstances are what they are, and they're there for a reason. And you're not a victim to them. You're here to transcend them, and it's going to make you so much stronger. So have trust in that, and carry yourself with a self-love that can embrace others too, because that heart of yours is infinite. So let it express. Don't hold yourself back because you believe that your form is a limitation to you. It isn't. So just breathe, as I said, and allow all of those emotions to come through, and see yourself as the beautiful boy that you are. Yeah, and that's it, I think.
Beautiful. Oh, that's beautiful, Jonathan. That was really, really lovely, really special. And I know that your inner child heard and felt every sincere word that you said. And yeah, that was absolutely beautiful. And if there's one last thing that you want to say to people, what would it be?
Yeah, I think what I would like to say to people, Eleni, is try to be kinder to people, because we open up space, and when we open up space, we get more divine expressions through in reality. And as we all wonder why we're here and why we should keep being here and why we shouldn't just end it right here and now, well, if you get more divine expressions in this reality, you will get your why. And as those expressions come through, we all get to see the beauty of our majesty. And so we get to see the dance of consciousness, and we stop pretending that this is some boring structure of rigid forms. And we get to see that it's a very elegant and it's incredibly joyful to partake in. But that can only happen if we are kind and open to each other, and we stop judging each other on every single thing that we perceive as wrong. If we can allow humility and forgiveness, reality will be so much more rich and full of life. And then your question of why will be answered. So just be kind and be loving. And that's it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. What a beautiful way to finish this episode. Jonathan, Saturnus, thank you so much for your beautiful, beautiful, kind words. And I know that everybody felt the frequency of those words and the energy that you have. So thank you so much for doing your thing on this earth and really giving out your love and your kindness to everybody. So thank you so much, Jonathan. It was a real pleasure today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Eleni. And honestly, all of you who's listening, you guys are great. Don't worry about it. Just be yourself and laugh.
That's it. That's it. You're great exactly the way you are. You're perfect exactly the way you
Yes.
are. I love it.
Thank you, Eleni.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thanks for joining us on The Shame Game. We hope you loved it. And if you did, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, remember, you are not alone in this journey. We're all in this together, and we are all worthy of love and belonging. And also remember this, you are not your shame.